Every year, tens of millions of tourists flock to the United States. But this year, international travel to the U.S. is already showing signs of slowing down as tourists are staying put or choosing to travel elsewhere.
It's being called great news for the Canadian tourism industry. New figures show due to political tension with the U.S., more than a quarter of Canadians changed their travel plans to avoid the States and instead explored provinces here in Canada.
That was good news for Canadian hotels, restaurants, and other businesses.
Domestic tourism as a spending vehicle to drive the economy is enormous.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. Something's happening up north, something almost no one saw coming. While headlines around the world focus on political drama and economic tension, Canada has quietly pulled off one of the biggest turnarounds in modern tourism history. The numbers don't lie. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, Canada's travel industry just hit a record 183 billion CAD, accounting for nearly 8% of its GDP, the highest in its history. That surge created 1.84 million jobs nationwide, a level few countries have managed since the pandemic. And the world is starting to notice. Condé Nast Traveler just ranked Canada among the top 10 destinations on the planet, with Victoria crowned the world's most beautiful small city for the second year in a row. But here's the twist. This boom didn't happen in isolation. It came exactly when the U.S., once the uncontested tourism giant, began to stumble. So what really triggered this quiet revolution? And is the world's love affair with Canada just beginning or already peaking? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. A simple like helps push this video to more people who need to see it. But every rise has its mirror image. And just as Canada's tourism story turned golden, the American dream began to fade. Across the world, warning signs started flashing, not from storms or natural disasters, but from governments themselves. More than 14 countries, including the UK, Germany, France, Canada, China, Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Finland, Ireland, the Netherlands, Portugal, Belgium, and Japan, issued or upgraded travel advisories against visiting the United States in 2025. The reasons weren't mysterious. Rising travel costs, mounting political and economic uncertainty, and tighter visa restrictions all combined to make the once iconic American vacation feel more like an obstacle course. European tour operators began quietly rerouting travelers, swapping U.S. itineraries for Canada, Scandinavia, or Southern Europe. Destinations seen as more predictable, affordable, and welcoming. And for an industry built on perception, that shift was seismic. Travel analysts now say the U.S. is losing the soft power edge it once dominated, the image of a friendly, accessible nation where anyone could visit, explore, and dream. In a world hungry for stability and transparency, tourists are voting with their passports, and many are now choosing Canada instead. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. And the consequences of that loss in confidence are already visible in the numbers. By 2025, the United States, once the world's tourism powerhouse, had become the only country among 184 nations tracked by the WTTC to record an absolute decline in international visitor spending. The downturn wasn't caused by external shocks or global recessions. It was the byproduct of internal uncertainty. Airlines, hotels, and major destinations from New York to Los Angeles began reporting double-digit drops in foreign bookings. Industry estimates suggest the U.S. lost around $12.5 billion USD in tourism revenue in 2025 alone, part of a broader $29 billion USD shortfall compared to early year forecasts. International visitor spending fell to $169 billion USD, about 22% below its 2019 peak, erasing years of recovery progress. The decline hit hardest among North America's closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico, whose travelers together make up the largest share of cross-border visitors. Trips from Canada alone dropped by roughly 20%, costing the U.S. an estimated $2.1 billion USD in lost income. Even short cross-border drives, once a weekend habit for millions of Canadians, fell sharply. Car crossings down 35% in September 2025, and air travel down 27%. What had long been a symbol of American openness, the freedom to visit, explore, and spend, was now becoming one of its most visible economic casualties. Meanwhile, something remarkable was unfolding on the other side of the border. For decades, weekend road trips from Canada to the US had been a tradition, a casual drive for shopping, concerts, or a quick vacation. But in 2025, that flow suddenly reversed. Millions of Canadians decided to stay home, quietly redrawing the map of North American tourism in the process. Border data showed car trips from Canada to the US dropped 34% in August and 35% in September, marking one of the steepest declines in decades. What had once been an effortless cross-border habit was now seen as unnecessary, even impractical. According to a TD Bank survey, 64% of Canadians said they planned to travel domestically rather than abroad. Many cited a simple reason: they wanted to keep their money in Canada and support local communities recovering from years of uncertainty. Tour operators across the country began reporting record bookings for domestic destinations, from British Columbia's coastlines to the mountains of Quebec and Alberta. Small lodges, ferry routes, and local airlines that once struggled for attention suddenly found themselves fully booked months in advance. What began as an emotional gesture of national solidarity had become an economic engine of its own. The Choose Canada movement, first a hashtag, then a mindset, was reshaping not just spending patterns, but a collective sense of identity. What started as a quiet act of protest had evolved into a full-blown economic phenomenon. The initial wave of Canadians choosing to vacation at home, partly in response to rising tensions with the US, soon became a self-reinforcing engine of growth. Domestic travel spending reached nearly 104 billion CAD in 2025, an 8.3% increase from the previous year, almost double the pace of 2024. Small towns once overlooked by international tourists began to thrive. In Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, locals called it the best business year we've ever had. Whale-watching companies even commissioned new boats to meet the surge in demand. On the opposite coast, Victoria's global recognition as the world's most beautiful small city attracted wealthier visitors, spurring new hotel projects and infrastructure upgrades. Across the country, the tourism boom rippled through service industries, restaurants, hotels, transport, and regional airlines, creating a wave of local jobs that helped offset slowdowns in manufacturing and trade. And as these communities prospered, something deeper began to take shape: a sense of national confidence. The image of Canada as safe, friendly, and reliable spread beyond its borders, turning into a form of soft power branding that money alone couldn't buy. While Washington was busy building barriers, Ottawa was quietly rolling out the red carpet, and that difference is reshaping global travel flows. As the U.S. tightened entry rules and visa processing times, Canada maintained some of the most visitor-friendly policies in the G7, streamlining its ETA and electronic visa systems to make entry faster and more predictable. For many travelers weary of bureaucracy, it was a simple but powerful signal: you're welcome here. The Canadian government backed that message with a new global campaign called Open North. Targeted toward European and Asian markets, it presented Canada as the safest destination in North America, a brand identity that resonated at a time when many travelers were prioritizing safety, transparency, and value over spectacle. The results were immediate. Toronto Pearson and Vancouver International Airport both reported record-high international arrivals since the pandemic, with airlines launching new routes from Germany, Japan, and Australia to replace reduced flights to the United States. The contrast couldn't be clearer: an open Canada versus a closed America. And in that contrast lies a new kind of strategic advantage, one built not on power, but on perception. The year 2025 made one thing clear: tourism is no longer just about vacations. It's a global measure of trust. As the U.S. grapples with self-inflicted uncertainty, Canada is rising for the very reason its neighbor is stumbling: stability. What used to be an afterthought in the global tourism race has now become a benchmark for confidence, predictability, and openness. The American tourism crisis revealed how quickly a nation's reputation can erode when its policies shake public trust. What began as administrative complexity and economic tension turned into something far more damaging: a perception problem. Canada, meanwhile, has seized the moment. By keeping its doors open, maintaining clarity in its policies, and projecting calm in a turbulent world, it's positioning itself as a symbol of reliability, a place where travelers, investors, and even citizens abroad feel secure placing their confidence. When $12.5 billion US dollars left America and 183 billion Canadian dollars flowed into Canada, the numbers told more than an economic story. They signaled a shift in soft power, one where trust, not tariffs, determines influence. The world, in a sense, is now voting with its passports, and for the moment, Canada is winning that vote. But the real question is, can it last? Can Canada hold on to this global confidence when new disruptions, political, economic, or environmental, inevitably arrive? Because in the end, this isn't just about where people choose to travel, it's about where they choose to believe. The next few years will test whether Canada's open-door strategy can endure in a world growing more divided by the day. Thanks for sticking around. If you found this valuable, like and subscribe to support more content like this.